My name is Kristen Tripathi, and I am part of the New Teacher Center. I've been with the New Teacher Center now for just a little over a year. And previously, I have about 15 years of experience in early childhood education. Worn many hats as a teacher, literacy coordinator, assistant principal, and now found my way with NTC. And so in a second, I want to hear a little bit more from you on who's in the room. But now I'd just like my wonderful colleague, Katie, to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're really happy to have you with us. I'm Katie Smith. I'm an Associate Program Consultant with New Teacher Center.
Katie.
Anybody hear me? Yeah? Oh. And I was teaching for about 13 years in early childhood before I moved on to administration. And I've been coaching and delivering professional development in Ravenswood District in East Palo Alto for the past year.
And I forgot to say, I'm in Oakland Unified School District currently and East San Jose Franklin McKinley School District currently. So we know we have a wealth of experience in the room, and just want to hear see a quick show of hands on how many TK teachers do we have here? Majority of us. And then administrators? Okay, coaches? Great. Other? What did I miss?
Early ed staff, I'm your assistant staff.
Thank you for being here. Any others? Community college. Okay, wonderful. Well, this we hope you will find is going to be a very collaborative session. We're going to get you up and moving around here right away to begin. And you're familiar with NTC's connectors now after you went to your first session. So the connector is really just to dive into the content and why we're here today, and learn from one another in the room, because we know that hopefully you're going to walk away with a few new nuggets from us, but as well as your colleagues and your peers. So to begin with, I'm going to invite you to open up your packet to the first page. And we're just going to take about a minute to individually reflect on our topic of today, which is effective early learning read alouds. And think about a time that you used a read aloud and it was particularly effective, or the children seemed to be super engaged with it. Name the title, and then think, what was it that made it so great? Why were the kids so engaged with that title? So take a minute. Anything I can clarify in terms of the directions? Okay, take a minute, jot down a title, at least one, maybe two if you have an extra minute. Okay, seeing majority of people starting to put their pens down. So now to surface some of these ideas, we're going to use a protocol that we call Give One, Get One. Some of you may be familiar with it. And the idea here really is to just share out some of these favorite books so that when you leave here today, you have a comprehensive list of other suggested titles from your peers, and also know why was it so special, what made it great. So when you hear the chime, Katie, can I have you stand up for a second? You are going to make eye contact with someone, so find an eyeball partner. And when you find that eyeball partner in your packet, you're going to want to be on this page, the Give One, Get One, that looks like this. And when you find your eyeball partner, you're going to introduce yourself if you don't know each other, and then share what was the title that came to your mind. So for me, today, Katie, the title that I'd like to share is called Not a Box. And what makes Not a Box really great is it promotes imagination and also a lot of oral language engagement with the children, and they just have a ton of fun with it. What is yours?
For me, it would be The Hungry Caterpillar, because for a lot of my students, they really, really engage with the illustrations and all the really vibrant colors. And also for the children in my class who are dual language learners, it's in English and it's in Spanish.
Perfect. So if I had a pen in my hand, I would have been jotting that title down and what made it great. And then I'm going to thank my partner and start to roam the room looking for someone else that I can make eye contact with to go to next. When you hear the chimes for the second time, that will be your cue to make your way back to your seat, and we'll continue on. Okay? Okay. You may begin.
Took it out of my hand. I wanted to tell you last week. Do you need a pen, just in case? Do you want a pen? This one doesn't work, but do you want one?
Those of you that have made your way back to your seat, we want to take just a minute to surface a few, because we know you only had a chance to talk to a couple people, and we said the idea was to walk away with a comprehensive list. So any book that someone shared with you that you'd like to share to the whole group because you think it was so great, or it was maybe just a good reminder of one that you've used in the past and want to share with the rest of your colleagues. Thank you.
Rhyming and vocabulary.
Perfect. Karma Wilson. And is Karma, can someone spell that?
I don't know. I wrote down C-A-R-M-A.
Karma Wilson. And great for rhyming and repetitive. Perfect. Thank you. Love it. Love it. Rosie's Walk, positional words. I've used that one as well. It's a good one. Couple others, maybe two more. Going on a bear hunt, the repetition, the positional words. Anytime we have kind of that rhythmic chanting, great for the vocabulary and their memory too. Yeah, Mouse was mad, great for socially emotional, thinking about productive ways to deal with our anger. Excellent, thank you so much. And Katie's going to finish up writing that last piece and then walk us through what the rest of our time together will look like. So you can go ahead and turn your packet to page 5.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I just want to walk you a bit through how we're going to spend our time together next 90 minutes or so or less, by just giving you a brief overview. And first, outlining the outcomes that we have for this session and what we hope you'll walk away with. And we really hope to develop a common vision and understanding around the importance of Read Alouds, as well as explore intentional planning and the ways that you can put together an effective Read Aloud and the components of that. We also want to touch on ways to engage families and encourage them around Read Alouds and going beyond the classroom and also expanding into the home. And we want to share some resources that can support you when you go back to your classroom. And just a brief overview to kind of take us through how we'll spend our time. We're already at the overview. This is where we are now. We're going to go into where we're going to spend the bulk of our time, and that's, we're going to ask the question why we read aloud and go into the benefits and so forth. We're going to talk about development of comprehension, oral language, and Kristen's going to take us through just a few tips and some resources around the family engagement and resources before we close. So if at any point we can answer any questions for you, we know we're in a tight space with a lot of people, so just let us know, get our attention, or if you're ever not able to hear anything, just let us know. We try to make it engaging, and even though there is a large group of us. So you already probably are familiar with the norms from the last session you were in. And I want to invite you in your packets to just take a look at the collaborative norms that we have. It's a way of framing our time together. One that I'd like to emphasize for us would be equity of voice, because there are a lot of folks and we want to make sure that we hear voices and people can share. And also active listening, because I know it can be hard when there are a lot of people to really pay attention. It being the last session of the day also can get, after lunch, can get a little difficult. But we want to encourage everybody to stay present and learn from each other also. So getting started and talking about why we read aloud, I wanted to invite possibly another voice to read this quote. Does anyone want to volunteer?
The way books are shared with children matters. Although reading a story to children is not a difficult task, taking advantage of the Read Aloud experience to develop children's literacy is complex and demanding.
Thank you, Erica. So what that quote, the reason why we share that quote is just what we already know. Reading aloud to kids can seem like a very simple idea, just an adult reading to children, and maybe there aren't many layers to it when you first look at it. But what we know is that it's very complex the way you need to plan it, and all the different components and all the factors to it. And it's also a really great opportunity to encourage a love for literature and also to scaffold children around their own reading. And so we want to really look at what are the benefits of an effective read aloud, of a good read aloud. What are the benefits of that for the kids in your classroom? So we want to also support by offering just a resource, an idea by Mem Fox. How many of you are familiar with her? She has a great resource, Reading Magic, where she talks about why reading aloud can change lives, and just she really expresses a really great knowledge around read alouds and why they're important. And so we adapted this a little bit because we have a larger group, but we want to invite you now at your tables to think about what benefits you see in a read aloud on the students in your classroom. And at each table, you can choose someone who can write, and then you can choose someone who will report out to the large group. And we'll be coming around with chart paper and then markers for you. Okay. And so as we consider page 12, just want to have everybody kind of look at the list and highlight anything that's of interest or anything that you notice also. So in looking at the list that you have at your table and kind of cross-checking with that list. And I like the way this table, everyone's got them on the walls and everything, is very... You don't have to, though. It's no pressure. Okay. So are there any ideas anyone want to share out what they noticed from the list, and then also what you noticed from the list that you compiled with your tables, some similarities or some things that were different?
You can cover a lot of skill building, just so many things when you just read a book to children. You know, the teacher can ask open-ended questions. You're helping build comprehension, teaching vocabulary. There's just so much. It's very rich.
Thank you. So you talked about the importance around the skill building and also the vocabulary, but just that, like, there are a lot of layers to the things that you can do with an effective read aloud. Thoughts from anyone else? I'm looking at you, but you don't have
I can share our poster. We were saying that student engagement and attention is so big when we're doing our read aloud. Students are so just focused, they're wanting it, and also it provides those insights and experiences they might not be able to have. And then you can bring that into the classroom with the read alouds. And we also talked about just, cadence, voice, intonation, modeling that fluency and vocabulary, rich vocabulary.
Thank you. I won't keep doing that to you. Okay. So if anyone has any other thoughts. Okay. So Kristen is going to take us through our next piece around planning and the importance of intentional planning of Read Aloud.
So now that we know why it's so important, not that we didn't know when we entered the room, but we know, as Katie said, it's a very complex task, and now we want to get to, so how do we plan to do it, and how do we plan to do it effectively? And so in order to do so, we're going to be doing two things. One, we're going to be looking at an article review, and two, we're going to look at a fishbowl and see a Read Aloud in action up here. So to begin with, Katie's in a second going to pass out an article to you called Moving Beyond the Who, What, When, Where, and Why. And it's one strategy that we might utilize with our TK students. It might be a strategy that you're already using, so it can be very affirming and validating to your practice, or it might be something that you're like, I haven't thought about that. So as you're reading it, we want you to annotate what you're reading. And in your packet on page 16, you can just see the protocol we're using for this. It's a very short read, less than 4 pages, and one is pretty much a picture, so it shouldn't take you very long to get through. And as you're reading it, we want you to think about, A, what was confirming, what was validating. Yep, I knew this, I'm already doing this, great. Secondly, is there anything that you're like, wow, that's a new spin on this, and that's something I really want to remember? You can tag it with an exclamation mark. And then last, of course, is there anything that's really making you wonder or questions you might have? We had a great conversation around this in the session this morning, so I anticipate this will be the same. After Katie passes it out, you can feel free to go ahead and get started. It probably will just take maybe 5-6 minutes to individually read, and then we'll share out some of those things that surfaced for you as you were doing so. Is there any questions or anything I can clarify before you begin? Something that was offered in the group this morning to piggyback off of that was that idea that even though we know there's this continuum of questions, it's not that the higher up we go, necessarily the better it is. Sometimes they need those basic questions, those retrieval questions, working on memory. So they're all important. It's not that some are more important than others, but it's just knowing that we can use it to differentiate scaffold as needed. Anything that you either chose to say this is especially important to remember, or that you questioned or wondered about? Yes, please, Janet.
They mentioned the rings, card rings, and I think that just calls the attention to pre-planning the questions ahead of time is really effective because I think our brains tend to default to the fact retrieval type questions.
Yeah.
But some really meaty questions planned ahead can lead
Right.
to a lot more student discourse.
Absolutely. I used to think I was really good at thinking on my feet and I didn't need to do it until I started doing it and realized how much richer it could be. Yeah. Thank you for that. And just curious, so they give the ring idea in the article. Does anyone use any other strategies to pre-plan those questions or record them? Yeah. Does everyone hear that? Post-it notes. See that commonly. Yes, thank you. Very nice. I love that. So it's not looking like you're looking for a very specific thing and encouraging that there could be many answers. That this strategy is great for Read Aloud and also for just oral language development in general, and centers is a great way to have them posted. We had an interesting comment earlier today, and it was that this woman tended to pick like 5 specific questions and stick with those for a while so that the children were internalizing those questions and then starting to ask them themselves as they were looking at books and just internalizing the language rather than trying to have a whole gazillion of other types of questions. And I thought that was a great idea to surface as well. Okay. Katie's going to talk to us a little bit. So this was really directed toward one strategy that we can use to work on our listening comprehension. And now Katie's going to talk to us a little bit about oral language, and then we're going to walk into the Fishbowl Read Aloud.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for sharing different ideas too. I think it's really powerful when everyone can get together and hear each other's ideas also, so we appreciate that. This quote is also in your packets. It's Hart and Risley. How many of you are familiar with their study, the 30 million word gap? Mm-hmm. So this is a quote from them that we wanted to share just to build more around purposeful planning and also to acknowledge equity and differences in the classroom while you're planning. So I'll just read it briefly. Not all children come to us with the same experiences or vocabulary knowledge. In fact, one study shows that children from advantaged homes had receptive vocabularies as much as 5 times larger than children from homes receiving aid to families with dependent children. And the reason why we thought that was important to share is because it's a reality in a lot of the classes in your classrooms and across the state that children are coming to us with different levels of development and really do need a lot of extra support and more support around their oral language development. And so we really want to weave that in to our planning and to the way that we plan read alouds based on the children that we have in our classrooms. And so Kristen's gonna model a read aloud for us. And within that, we'll have the fishbowl. And we want to think, we'll kind of divide down. So this side of the room would be group A. This side of the room would be group B. And while you're observing her, we'd like you to keep in mind how she's promoting for deep comprehension. So that would be group A. And then group B, we would ask you to observe for how she's developing oral language development. And so in your package, you'll just see on the following page, you'll see where you can jot down any other strategies also, but keeping in mind the before, like what went into that planning, the during, and the after. Is there anything I can clarify? Questions? Okay. Kristen, did you want to add anything before?
The only thing that I will add is just to frame the fishbowl is obviously today I have 2 wonderful colleagues, 3, great, 4, and a couple of things. Number 1, I'm going to try to pack several things into this read aloud, and if I were in the classroom, I might scaffold that over a few days, but for the sake of today, there might be more than I would normally do. Secondly, we'll pull some chairs up, thank you. Secondly, I obviously have some pretty brilliant and sophisticated students here today. And if I didn't have that, I might have to do some more work with the rituals and routines and talking about doing a turn and talk to get at some of these things I'm trying to do. So I have the good fortune of having these wonderful students here today. And feel free, I know it's going to be kind of hard to see. I'll try to talk loud and hold the picture book up so you can see what's happening in the back of the room. If you want to scoot your way up, feel free. Okay. Chair is fine. Yeah. It's a long time to sit. Oh, you're excited. All right. Good afternoon, friends. I'm so glad that you're here today for our Read Aloud because this is one of my favorite books because in the book, the main character, the bunny, loves to use his imagination. Can you say imagination? Imagination. Yeah, so when I use my imagination, I pretend things, right? When I was your age, I would pretend that all my stuffed animals could talk to me and they were my friends and I would have conversations back and forth. And I had favorite friends one day and then I'd pick another animal. So I used my imagination to play with my animals that we know they really can't talk, right? When have you used your imagination or pretended? Can you think of a time?
I used to make mud castles, so I would pretend they were big castles made out of mud.
Ooh, mud castles, and then you would pretend that you were who in the castle?
I was a princess in the castle.
You were a princess in your mud castle. I love it, Elia. Thank you.
I pretended I was Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman, B, what did you do as Wonder Woman? Oh, wow. So you kind of like took care of things. Were you flying?
Yeah.
You could fly too? See, it's so fun to pretend, isn't it? Well, this bunny today in our story, Not a Box, is going to do a lot of pretending, okay? Can you say the title with me? Not a Box. And their story is by author and illustrator Antoinette Portis. She wrote and illustrated the pictures. That's really cool. It's like what we do in our writing. We can write and draw the pictures. So here we go. Let's find out what the bunny pretends. The dedication page says, "To children everywhere, sitting in a cardboard box." Huh. Children everywhere, sitting in a cardboard box? That's who the author wants to read this book. All kids sitting in a box. That's interesting. We're gonna come back to that after we read, okay? Let's see what happens. Why are you sitting in a box? Someone's asking the bunny, why is he sitting in a box? It's not a box. What is it?
It's a car.
It's a car. What kind of car do you think?
Race car.
How do you know it's a race car?
Because it has a number.
Excellent. I noticed you using the picture clues to decide it is a race car. See, it's not a box.
It's not a box.
Dear God. All right, now it's going to be your turn to figure out what he's doing. What are you doing on top of that box? 1, 2, 3. Turn knee to knee. Why do you think the bunny is on top of the box? What could he be pretending? 1, 2, 3. Turn knee to knee to a partner. Oh, and good. We're short a person today, so you guys can be a triad. Good problem solving.
He's on a building, on top of a building. I think he's on a mountain.
3, 2, 1. Talking is done. Okay, eyes back on me. What did you say to your friends? Why do you think he's standing on top of the box? What could he be pretending? Any ideas? Katie, thank you.
I think he's on a mountain
Why do you think he's on a mountain, Katie?
because he's so tall.
So if he's way up on top of the box, he must be on something tall, and it could be a mountain. Katie, guess what? You could have written this page just like the author. He was thinking he's on a mountain. So on 3, say it with me. He's going to say, it's not a box. He's saying it's Rabbit Peak. Oh, this is a little tricky one. Okay, big words here. Why are you squirting a box? Show me what it looks like to squirt. Yes, he's squirting the box. So this time, turn to your neighbor really quick. 1, 2, 3, knee to knee. What do you think he's squirting? 3, 2, 1, talking is done. What did you say?
Maybe he's a firefighter.
Maybe he's a firefighter. Could be. What else could he be squirting?
We thought he was a fireman, and did you say? Maybe he's an elephant.
Maybe he's an elephant. So if he's an elephant, you must know something about elephants. They squirt out of their nose. They have things coming out. Ooh, very creative. Let's look. I said it's not a box. And look at that, it was a fire. But Katie, I love that you were using your imagination because it could have been. Absolutely. Lots of things we can squirt. Oh, now you're wearing a box. This is not a box. What is it? Like a monster or a robot. Either one could work. This bunny has a good imagination. We have a very tricky one now. Are you still standing around in that box? Look at how the bunny's standing. Can you do that? If you see someone looking like this, what would you be doing? Why do people do this sometimes? Ooh, Katie, say more. He lost something? So why do you do this?
Looking for something.
Oh, so sometimes it's a symbol that you're looking for something. So what, any other ideas why he might be like this?
He's captain of a ship.
Oh, captain of a ship, because when you're captain of the ship, if I go like this, it can help me maybe see a little farther. Let's find out what the author was thinking. Ready? It's not a box. He thought of 4 ideas if he was standing tall and looking far away. He thought he could be sitting on a ship, like Katie thought, in an air balloon, sitting on top of an elephant, there's our elephant, and sitting in a tugboat. All things he had to see far away. I love this bunny. Well, what is it then? Someone keeps asking him, what are you doing with that box? He keeps saying it's not a box, so they want to know, what is it if it's not a box? And the bunny's thinking, what is it if it's not a box? It's my not a box. He's saying not a box, but really fast. Can we say it together? It's my not a box. Say it one more time. Not a box. So it's a box, but he's calling it not a box. Do you think you could pretend like the bunny did with a cardboard box? Do you think that you could write like the bunny did and come up with a picture of where you could be if you had a box?
Not a good drawer.
You're not a good drawer. Well, I wonder if we could have a friend help with that. Yeah. Oh, thank you for being such a good friend, Elia. So I started with this tricky question. The author said this book is for children sitting everywhere in a box. Why would the author want a child like you who has a box to read the story? Give me a high five, Bea, so we can use our imagination. We just had so much fun using our imagination. And when we go outside today on the playground, you're going to see we have some cardboard boxes for you to be just like the bunny. And if you liked this book in the reading corner, I have another one called Not a Stick. So you can be the pig and imagine what you could do with a stick. Thank you for being such great listeners to our story today. Josie. Thank you. All right. I'll just, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, kids. So as you think about the observations that you made, whether you were thinking about questions or whether you were thinking about the oral language development, I want to open it up and invite folks to share some of their observations out, regardless of what you were focusing on. Does anyone like to share?
I like the way that she was asking them questions while she was reading the story and also personalizing like their comments. Like when one of them said the comment about the elephant, and she said, "Oh, you must."
As well. Did anyone else see anything or want to surface anything, share anything?
She's quite a bit of few talk moves.
Hmm.
How do you know? Say more, restating,
Mm-hmm.
and that think aloud model.
Mm-hmm.
Was
Yeah.
key.
So you noticed the Think Aloud model and that she had them retell also. Thank you. So right now, Kristen is coming around and she's passing out something that accompanies this Read Aloud. So it's a sample lesson plan also for this Read Aloud. There are some components from Bring Me a Book Foundation that are in there and just some suggestions for when you're reading this book. But people can always add to it. It's just a resource that if you're reading this book, you may want to follow this model. So that's from Bring Me a Book Foundation.
We wrote it, but it's adapted from suggestions from Bring Me a Book Foundation.
So it's from New Teacher Center, but it was adapted from suggestions from the Bring Me a Book Foundation. Okay. So thank you everybody for sharing. We'll go forward, and Kristen is going to take us through a bit around our family engagement and considering working with families.
Okay, so we're on the home stretch. It's a little warm in here. We've got about 15 minutes left. We thought it would be a missed opportunity to have all of you in the room and not have a little bit of time talking about the family engagement piece, because we know it's so critical in what we do. And because you're sitting with some very bright, smart peers at your table, we want to give you just a few minutes to talk about, when you think about literacy engagement and specifically getting families involved in it, what are some things that you have done that have really worked for your school, for your kids, to get them involved? And this can just be an open conversation at your table, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll come back together because we want to end on time. So let's take just one more opportunity to share out a couple things that maybe you hadn't thought of before, that someone at your table has shared that maybe now you're promoted to try. Yes?
Okay, so I send home book bags, so I have 24 students, so I have 24 book bags. And so they labeled 1 through 24. And basically it has a book, usually a stuffed animal, and or something that goes with that book. Like
Wow.
if it's a book about string, it would be a piece of string in it.
Okay.
And then a journal, a writing journal for them to, either the parents to write in it, whatever, they take dictation, or for the kids to draw a picture about
Yeah.
their experience with the book. And then, so it goes home on Monday, it comes back on Thursday, so when they forget, it comes back on Friday. And it just,
Great idea.
And it just kind of rotates around, so if you got book number 1 this week, you'll get book number 2 next week.
Oh, I love
And
it.
then I pick up the materials at garage sales, or just wherever it's cheap, so if it gets lost, I'm not too stressed.
Yeah.
That's great. And then I bet with that, okay. And with those kind of rituals and routines in the classroom, my guess is that it filters onto the families then. If they're used to doing that at home, then that's something they could. Very cute. Thank you. Any others? Some of you were on to us and already on to the next page in your packet, and the pattern that we kind of have going on here. But in the next page, we do have some other suggestions in terms of getting more family engagement. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I do want to highlight just a couple. And in particular, the first one, belief that families want the best for their children and have the capacity to support their children's learning. It sounds simplistic, but we know that it has to start with us really believing that we can reach every child just like we want to reach every family. And if we can do both, it's only going to be that much more powerful. And we also know that it's not always easy, and there can be several roadblocks. But if we can try as best as we can to keep that growth mindset and keep that notion in our head that I know it might not appear this way today, but I know these parents care. I know that they have the capacity to help, and I will try to reach them just like I'm going to try to reach their child. So I think it really does start there. I also wanted to talk about the third bullet because I think it needs a little explanation. Have any of you done a mystery reader before? Invited mystery readers into your classroom? Okay, it's just, seeing some nodding of heads. It's just that notion that you invite family members or community members into your classroom, and when they come in, the kids, they're not introduced right away, and the kids get to ask yes or no questions until they figure out who is this person and who might they be related to within the room. And it's just that opportunity to hear other adults read and try to build that passion along the way. Kids love it when they know it's a mystery reader day, and especially if it's someone that is close to them. And you have some that are sitting there just like chomping at the bit, like, it's my mom! Or you have the ones that just have the total poker face, and they shock you what they end up doing. So it's a fun way. And then I wanted to just elaborate a little on host family literacy nights. I just recently read an article that talked about a school in Ohio that did something called One Book, One School, and it was a chapter book, and they got a grant to help support it. But essentially, the entire school read the same book. So it was all the way from pre-K to 4th grade, this particular school. And it was sent home, and they had certain points that they had to read by a certain time. And then they did activities around it in the school. Like on the announcements, they would ask questions around what do you think happened, and so that it was encouraging that it was happening at home, and then we're talking about it here, and the whole school was talking about it. And then they had a huge culminating event at the end of it, invited families and parents, parents, grandparents to come in, and had, you know, people dressed up as the book characters, games, everything around this book. And I just thought that's a really cool idea that I think would be somewhat easy to implement. So with that, we are going to end our session with just sharing a couple more resources. The last page in your packet starts with Bring Me a Book Foundation, and I just want to personally thank them for, they end up partnering with New Teacher Center quite often to get more books into classrooms, and oftentimes we'll do the professional development, and then they'll supply a set of like 30 books for classrooms and a bookshelf. They knew we were coming here today, and they couldn't supply a whole set of 30 books, but what they did agree to do is give everyone the copy of Not a Box. So you will walk away with that today, thanks to Bring Me a Book Foundation. So, yeah. So Katie will pass that out, and while she's doing so, I just want to also say that if you have not checked out their website, they have a great Read Aloud, a couple of videos that are examples like the Fishbowl today, but I encourage you to check it out. It's always good to see other people doing that in action. You're very familiar with CAEYC and NAEYC, I'm sure, but if not, they also have a lot of resources specifically to Read Aloud and other early learning practices. Have any of you visited achievethecore.org? It's part of Common Core. Okay. They have on their website, specific to kindergarten, but it could very easily be adapted to TK, some excellent lesson plans that also fit Common Core. So if you're looking for more book ideas that also have lessons to go with them, that would be a great website to visit. That's the Read Aloud project. Yep.
We want to encourage everybody briefly to reflect on the past 90 minutes we spent together and think about what you'll be going to try or what you'll try based on this session or something that you've thought about. And just take a moment for yourself and write it on the sticky notes that are at your table. The belief is that if we write something down, it's much more likely to happen, and we're much more likely to do it or try it. So that's why we were thinking to put our reflections on paper. And when you've written down what you plan to do or what you hope to do, to share at your table with the partner.